So there's this old man who lives on my block, and he keeps working on his front lawn, and he's got his rear end hanging out. And I go, look, old man, you can't be doing that. We got kids on this block. Would you please cover that up? And he goes, look, it's my hips. I go, it's not your hips, it's your ass. Cover it up. So today we're talking about nudity on This Naked Truth. Brought to you by Trisha Hirschberger, one person who knows a lot about nudity because she does The Naked Truth. And that is a really big topic because you have to ask yourself about nudity. What do you mean by nudity? That story of my neighbor who had his rear end hanging out, well, that was a true story. And what I eventually did is I went to a Dickies outlet and I went and I got him long shirts. You know, these extra large LT, long tall shirts. And I bring him these 6 brand new long tall shirts. And then the next time I see him and he's not wearing them and I say, why aren't you wearing the shirts? He goes, well, I'm working and it's dirty and I get dirt on them and my wife gets angry at me. So I went out there and I took 3 long shirts of my own, or 6 long shirts of my own, and they already wore them down to they had holes in them, and then I gave them to him and I said, here, they have holes in them. You don't have to worry about getting them dirty because they're already ruined. So then I see his wife just a few days later and I say, yeah, so I gave Ken now a group of shirts, and you don't have to worry about him getting them dirty because they're already old, but they're tall shirts, they'll cover him up nicely. And his wife goes, why would you tell me that? And I say, well, he said that, you know, that you were the reason he wasn't wearing the long shirts. And she looks at me and goes, that's horse shit. Yeah. So, obviously, on my block, nudity is not a good thing. I don't want to come out of my house in the morning and see naked old man. But I mean, in my college days, there were plenty of women doing the exact same thing as this old man was. And I never approached or complained to them about it because, well, 1, they weren't old men, and 2, we were a group of adults and there weren't any kids around. So, one of those things about nudity. Yeah. So, someone's speeding. That's very rude, someone speeding. Now I can hear geese. Can you hear the geese? I don't think you can hear the geese on the camera, but I can hear the geese. I guess the speeding upset the geese. Anyway, so yeah, there's a time and a place for nudity. That's sort of the first thing. I mean, if you do read my comic, Johnny American, Boomer, Johnny's father, runs around in his underwear the entire time. And it's very offensive because I have geese in my backyard. Okay. That was different. But, yeah, so Johnny's father runs around in a pair of jockey shorts all the time, and my father actually did that. He ran around in a pair of old, nasty jockey shorts, and, you know, my friends would come over and he'd sit there talking to him in his underwear, and it's like, old man, you got problems. So, yeah, you know, nudity is not necessarily something that is acceptable in all circumstances. Amongst adults, nudity is acceptable and perfectly fine. I really should have started this topic with more to talk about. I'm trying to think of a joke or something to liven this up, but it's not coming to me at the moment. Okay, so this guy walks up to me and he says, does your mom know you're gay? And I said, look, I told you I was drunk and you were wearing lipstick. No? Okay. How about this? So I walk into HR and I say, there's this big crack. I keep seeing this big crack in the lunchroom. And then they say, why would you come and talk to us about this big crack? Why wouldn't you just tell maintenance? I go, look, you need to tell Steve to pull his pants up. Okay, so now obviously there's another point to nudity we need to discuss. That is professional nudity. And believe it or not, I knew a girl at one time. I don't like her friends, so I don't know her anymore. But I knew a girl at one time who was a professional nude model. And I mean, you look at this girl and she's rail thin, so she's got nothing to hide, I guess. And I mean, she actually at one point sent me a link to her nudes on Model Mayhem. So she sends me this link and I get on this website, because when a girl shows you a link to her nudes, it's almost rude not to look at them at that point. And it said, you cannot view this picture because you are not logged in. And I'm like, okay, well, that may as well create an account. It's no big deal. So I create an account, and it says, you may not look at this picture because you are not an active member. At which point I said, now look, if I went that far to see this girl nude, it would be creepy. I know that she's a professional nude model and dozens of people see her nude every day, but any further, I mean, this is just going to be creepy. So I'm not going any further than that. And it's like she doesn't make enough as a nude model to make a living. She actually just makes enough to offset her income. I know that she speaks Japanese. She's a certified Japanese interpreter, so she can translate Japanese, written and spoken, and there was that. And then she does regular acting as well, and so on and so forth. So there's that thing, is that yes, being nude on camera does not necessarily guarantee you a living. So understand that much. Now, I have to make a point from a standpoint of evaluating nudity in a script. There is a difference between nudity and nakedness. Nudity is being without clothes. Nakedness is being exposed. So, like if you take the movie Zombievers, I'm not kidding, it's a real movie, there's the girl takes her top off to sunbathe. This is nudity. It is not nakedness until a bear shows up, and then she's running around topless with a bear around. This is nakedness. When you look at the movie, for example, Alien, one of the greatest horror movies ever made, in my own opinion at least, at the end, there's very famous, it's Ripley's rear end cleavage. And she's not actually naked, she's wearing underwear, we can see that. But there's some cleavage exposed down there, and you look at that and it's like, well, it proves something, is that you're as vulnerable as you can be with the monster right there. That's the whole point of that scene. It's artistic. It's Ripley, the character, stripped down to her barest essentials, as vulnerable as she can be. She's lost everything at that point, and she has to find the strength to fight on. Okay? This is the difference between nudity and nakedness. Nakedness should make the audience's heart rate increase. We should feel more for the character at that point, because there is danger, because they're exposed, because something is happening at this moment that is dynamic, and the nakedness of that moment is supposed to increase the emotional impact. Now, of course, because Tricia Hirschberger is an actress, and she mentioned, if she were offered the role of a lifetime, but there was nudity involved, she'd probably do the nudity. Yeah, I would too. I mean, to be clear on that, if I appeared naked in a film, I don't do acting anymore, but if I did, if I appeared naked in a film, I might lose my job over it. That is a legitimate reason to terminate somebody, if they did, full frontal nudity or whatever have you. So, I mean, it would have to be enough money for me so that I wouldn't need my job anymore. That's one of those things. And who the hell would want to see me naked, or at least pay that much money for it? But then I have to make a point here. There's an airplane in the background, and I'm just going to ignore it. Oh, that's a lot of airplane to ignore. Anyway, so Trisha mentioned, that she doesn't like the whole nude thing because there is a sexuality about it. Trisha, look, there was a guy who sends me an email on YouTube because I do these videos saying that he wants to see my chest and belly. And I know that he has a fetish for fat people, and he's going to have his hand to me being fat, which I'm going, hell, if it gets me views, I'm not showing anything naughty and I don't care. So it's one of those things we kind of have to realize about walking through this world, is it's very likely that somebody sees us, thinks we're attractive, and then has some very private moments involving us with us not being there. So let's just remember that. And like I say, I mean, I'm going to just make the point, never pull a Megan Fox, which is in Jennifer's Body. There was a scene where she was supposed to be nude and she had something over her that made her look nude. And it's like, look, the character's nude, so should you be. And I didn't see Jennifer's Body, so I don't know. The nudity in that may not have been appropriate. And that's one of those things, is like, if you're going to have nudity in a film, it should simply make sense. It should be there for a reason. As I say, in horror films, nudity is not as common as you'd think. It's one of those things I've learned. It's not as common as you think. I've watched a lot of low-budget horror films, and there's generally not a lot of nudity in them. Especially creature features, because sci-fi does those, and they all have to be PG-13. So that's what you have to understand. But if you're going to put that in there, it's not that they're exposed, it's that they're exposed at a key moment that makes them more vulnerable. That's that thing. I mean, a bit of trivia for you. I'm not sure if this is entirely true, but I do believe the largest actor who started out in porn today, largest actor who's still alive, is Sylvester Stallone. And he actually, before Rocky, did pornography. I've never seen him in pornography, but, I've seen clips of that particular, it's called The Italian Stallion, which is where the name from Rocky came from, but it's like, why would I want to see Stallone naked? That doesn't make any sense to me. I know there are naked chicks in there too, but I mean, never been a big fan of pornography. So there's that thing. Well, okay, I've talked enough.